In a world where people often believe that success depends on power, money, and influence, there are moments that prove otherwise. James Harrington had all the wealth and authority a man could dream of. As the CEO of one of the most powerful corporations in the city, his decisions influenced markets, his words could launch million-dollar deals, and his signature could change lives overnight. Yet, for all his influence, he found himself completely powerless in the face of the one thing that mattered most: his daughter's silence. Lily had once been a bright, talkative 8-year-old with a smile that lit up a room. But after the tragic car accident that took her mother's life, her world had changed overnight. She hadn't spoken a single word in 6 months. No amount of pleading, coaxing, or therapy could break through the walls she had built around herself. James tried everything. The best child psychologists, speech therapists, and specialists were brought in. They tried playful games, memory exercises, even art therapy. Each time the results were the same. Lily's deep brown eyes would remain distant, her lips sealed as though the world no longer deserved her voice. James sat beside her hospital bed night after night, speaking softly, telling her about his day, about her favorite bedtime stories, and about the places they would visit when she got better. But his voice was met only with silence. It tore at him, that silence. It was a constant reminder that all his money and all his power were useless in the one battle that mattered most. One rainy evening, as James sat slumped in a chair by the window, staring at the blurred lights of the city, a quiet sound drew his attention. It was the squeak of a mop bucket rolling down the hall. A man in worn overalls appeared at the door, pausing as he noticed Lily in bed. His name was Daniel, the hospital's night janitor. He nodded politely at James and stepped in to mop the floor, humming softly as he worked. James barely acknowledged him. He was used to people passing in and out of the room without making a difference. But Daniel's eyes kept wandering toward Lily, not with pity, but with recognition, as if he understood the storm inside her better than anyone else. When Daniel finished cleaning, he paused at the door. "She reminds me of my own girl," he said quietly. James looked up for the first time. Daniel didn't elaborate, but the way his voice softened told James there was a story there. Over the next few nights, Daniel returned during his shift, always when things were quiet. He didn't talk much. Sometimes he would hum a lullaby, sometimes he would sit by the window with a notebook, sketching small animals and flowers. He never pushed Lily to speak. Instead, he simply existed in the same space as her, letting her know she wasn't alone. James didn't understand it at first. "Why do you keep coming back?" he asked one night, his voice tinged with exhaustion. Daniel shrugged. "When my daughter was younger, she went through something, and she stopped talking. People kept trying to get her to speak, but it was like forcing a locked door. The more they tried, the tighter it shut. Took time and it took patience. I just want her to know someone's here for her, no matter how long it takes." For days nothing changed. But then one night, Daniel brought in a small faded stuffed rabbit. Its fur was worn and its ears bent out of shape. "This was my girl's," he told Lily gently. "She said it kept her company when she couldn't find the words. Maybe it can keep you company too." He set it on the bed and turned to leave. That's when it happened. A voice, small and hesitant, broke the silence. "What's her name?" Lily asked. James froze. He had almost forgotten the sound of her voice. His chest tightened as he turned toward her. Daniel's face lit up with a smile that reached his eyes. "Her name's Penny," he said softly. "She's a good listener." Lily's tiny fingers clutched the rabbit, and for the first time in months, her eyes seemed brighter, more alive. The conversation that followed was halting at first, but soon she began to ask more questions, her curiosity gently leading her out of the silence she had hidden in for so long. In that moment, James realized something that humbled him to his core. The man standing before him wasn't a specialist, wasn't someone with an impressive degree or a powerful position. He was a janitor, someone the world might overlook. And yet, Daniel had done what James, with all his wealth, could not. He had reached Lily. Not with flashy gestures or expensive treatments, but with quiet patience, gentle empathy, and the courage to let her come back to herself in her own time. Over the following weeks, Lily's voice grew stronger. She began speaking to James more often, laughing occasionally, even singing along when Daniel hummed his lullabies. James offered Daniel anything he wanted. Money, a house, even a new career. But Daniel shook his head. I don't need anything, sir. Seeing her smile again, that's enough. James insisted on finding a way to thank him. When he learned Daniel's daughter was struggling to afford college, James quietly paid for her tuition and later offered Daniel a role in the company where he could help families in crisis, using his own life experience to make a difference. Looking back, James realized this was the most valuable lesson he had ever learned. It wasn't his position as CEO or the resources at his disposal that changed Lily's life. It was the kindness of a man who understood her pain, the patience to wait without forcing, and the empathy to sit beside her in silence until she was ready to speak. Patience and empathy had achieved what power and money never could. And in the end, it didn't just give Lily her voice back. It gave James a new understanding of what it truly meant to help someone. In a city where the skyline glittered with the glass towers of power, James Harrington stood at the very top. As the CEO of one of the largest corporations in the country, his life was defined by boardrooms, high-stakes decisions, and the unshakable belief that there was no problem money couldn't solve. That belief shattered the day his daughter, Lily, stopped speaking. Lily was only 8 years old when tragedy struck. A car accident claimed her mother's life and left Lily physically unharmed, but emotionally locked away. For months, she didn't utter a single word. Specialists called it trauma-induced mutism. James spared no expense in trying to bring her back. The best speech therapists, child psychologists, and behavior specialists were brought in. Offices filled with toys, colorful charts, and trained professionals became Lily's second home. Yet, each time she sat quietly, eyes lowered, her voice buried somewhere too deep for them to reach. James stayed by her side in the hospital after another failed attempt at therapy, his mind replaying every memory of her laughter, every bedtime story she used to demand. The silence weighed heavier than any loss he had known. As far as he could see, there was no one left who could help. That was when Daniel appeared. No one noticed him much. He was the night janitor, moving through the hospital halls with his mop and bucket, cleaning floors while the rest of the world slept. His overalls were faded, his shoes worn from years of walking the same corridors. To most, he was invisible. But when he passed Lily's room one rainy night, he paused. He saw the small girl lying in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, and he saw the man sitting beside her, head bowed under the weight of helplessness. Daniel stepped inside quietly. "Evening, sir," he said to James. James barely acknowledged him. He didn't expect the janitor to have anything to offer. But Daniel didn't leave right away. He began to hum softly as he mopped, a tune so gentle it almost blended with the sound of the rain tapping the window. Lily's eyes shifted toward him for a moment, then returned to the ceiling. Daniel noticed but said nothing. The next night he returned during his break. This time he didn't mop, he just sat in the corner, sketching little pictures of animals on scraps of paper. Lily glanced at him once or twice but didn't speak. Daniel's visits became a quiet routine. He didn't pressure her, didn't ask questions. He was simply there. Over time James grew curious. "Why do you keep coming back?" he asked one night. Daniel set down his pencil. "Because I know what silence like hers feels like. My own daughter went through it once. The world thought she was just being stubborn, but she was scared. Sometimes the best thing you can do is sit with someone in their silence, until they trust you enough to let you in." James didn't know what to say. He had brought in professionals with years of training, but here was a man in worn clothes and calloused hands speaking with a wisdom no textbook could teach. One night, Daniel walked in holding a small stuffed rabbit with one ear bent. "This was my daughter's," he told Lily gently. "She gave it to me when she went off to college. Said it helped her talk again when she couldn't find the words. Maybe it can help you too." He placed the rabbit on her bed and turned to leave. Then a voice, small, hesitant, broke the air. "What's her name?" Lily asked. James froze. His heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward her. Daniel's face broke into a slow, warm smile. "Her name's Penny," he said. "She's a very good listener." Lily's fingers clutched the rabbit, and a shy smile touched her lips. That night she spoke more. Just a few words at first, then questions about the rabbit, the lullaby Daniel hummed, and the little drawings he made. Bit by bit, her voice began to return. It struck James then that the man who had succeeded where every expert failed was not a wealthy specialist, not a celebrated therapist, but a janitor whose kindness and patience had given Lily something no money could buy, safety and trust. After Lily began to heal, James called Daniel into his office. "You've done more for my daughter than I could ever repay. Tell me what you want, anything." Daniel shook his head. "I don't want anything, sir. I just wanted to help." But James couldn't leave it at that. When he learned that Daniel's daughter was struggling to pay her last year of college tuition, he quietly took care of it. He also offered Daniel a new role in his company, not as a cleaner, but as a community outreach coordinator, working with children and families going through hardship. Months later, at the company's annual gathering, Lily stood on stage beside her father. "My daddy is the boss of a big company," she said into the microphone. "But the man who helped me find my voice again wasn't rich or famous. He wore overalls and carried a mop. I think real heroes don't always look like we expect them to. Sometimes they just show up and care when no one else does." The room fell silent, and more than one person wiped away tears. James felt his throat tighten as he looked at Daniel, standing at the edge of the crowd, humble as ever. From that day forward, James made it a point to look for the people no one noticed. He realized that real change didn't always come from the top down. It often came quietly from those who worked in the background without glory, without headlines. They were the unsung heroes, the ones who made the world softer, kinder, without asking for anything in return. Daniel never called himself a hero, but to James and Lily, he would always be one. His kindness had reached a place no money could touch, proving once and for all that true heroes often go unnoticed, yet leave behind the most lasting change of all.